raise your glass up high. Turn it up big time. Tall boy on the line. Everything will last. Raise your...
Welcome back to episode 290 of the Tall Boy Radio podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, the beer's flowing in a very interesting direction tonight. Something that we've not talked about in the... And we put that right. What do you reckon, Gaza?
Absolutely. Evening all, evening the world. Hope you're okay out there in listener land. Yeah, looking forward to this. You know, we always talk about sort of new guests and new topics, and to pick something in episode 290 that we actually haven't spoken about before is quite rare. And yeah, can't wait till we get into it.
Indeed. Now we have a guest, and he's a guest who's guested on a podcast before. And to be fair, we chucked him in at the deep end a little bit. We got him talking about something that was way out of his comfort zone.
Yep.
So today, he's going to be talking about something which is much more of his wheelhouse. Did you want to say hello, Matty, and tell us a little bit about what it is that you do?
Well, fellas, I mean, first of all, this is the first time I've been on with both of you in terms of being a team. I've been on here before. I wouldn't say I'm a friendly voice, but I've been here before. So I do appreciate the time and wanting to come on here and talk about something that decidedly I'm probably only interested in the ways that I'm interested in. But I'm just happy to be here. You will find out what I do throughout the entirety of this, so no need to plug away. I think we just get into the topic and let's dice it up. I love talking sneakers, so you guys are in for a world of hurt here.
Well, I love listening to people talk about sneakers. Do I know a lot about the subject? No, because I'm in my 50s now, so my opinions probably no longer count on this matter, and I know for a fact his definitely don't. Is that fair?
No, I absolutely fair. And we'll get into it a little bit. You know, I have, I say, an infamous stroke famous sneaker story. We'll get into it a little bit later. But that's about it, really. I don't know a huge amount about it other than it seems to have exploded in the last, I don't know, 5 years maybe, and it's gone absolutely ridiculous. And brands that were around years ago that were absolutely dog turd are now actually pretty decent, and sort of vice versa. So yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to picking Matty's brains and seeing what he's got to talk about.
Indeed. So probably the first one that we should address really is Reebok and Reebok's basketball shoes that they put out there. Now, I've just recently watched the documentary, should really be doing inverted commas there, with Shaquille O'Neal on Netflix, talking about him relaunching the Reebok brand and taking it up there. He wants to put it back up there and relaunch it, and he's chosen some talent to launch his shoes with. What's your take on Reebok? What's your take on Shaq?
I think Reebok is a nostalgia brand in the sense that, I don't know what it was like over there for you fellas, but here in the 80s, Reebok was near the top in terms of brand recognition, because I think the aerobics era, as I like to call it, was a real driver for mostly middle-aged women or adjacent to middle-aged women exercising. You know, in the 80s especially, they were considered top-end athletic shoes for athletic wear. And then Reebok was huge in the early 90s, specifically when it came to a lot of pro sports in America and just all over the world. But as a brand, they got overtaken by so many other factors, because athletics wasn't the only driver now for shoes and even athletic wear. I mean, even late into the 90s, especially in the 2000s, tracksuits became really big. Those are not meant for fashion, or at least they weren't at the time. They sort of got overtaken for fashion. Shoes became much more prevalent in terms of being made for not just athletic wear, but for lifestyle purposes too. Athletic shoes that were lifestyle brands, right? So Reebok had to reinvent themselves. They went away for a while. I would say they're almost like Willy Wonka. They went dormant. They were purchased, and now they have Shaquille O'Neal, Allen Iverson, two of the biggest names in, I would say, 90s and 2000s basketball behind them. And they're trying to basically have a resurgence. They don't have the same kind of catalog that, say, a Nike, Jordan brand can pull from. Nike and Jordan brand can take almost every silhouette that they have in the vault somewhere, put it out, people feel a way about it, boom, they make a ton of money. Reebok doesn't really have that, because you had to be there and remember. You have to have some type of a connection to that brand to understand what it meant in the time that it was there. So you probably notice, if you're paying attention, Reebok will have releases here or there. The Reebok Pump the question, all these things that come out that people have a story about. My story in sneakers is related to the Reebok pump. So I would be interested in it. You pick somebody who is between the ages of, let's say, 14 and 25, probably don't remember any of that with Reebok. So they're kind of trying to not be number one. They're just trying to bring that brand back to what they feel is the right space in terms of respect, because they're never going to overtake Adidas or Nike or even New Balance probably ever again.
No, I think you're probably right there. You know, when I think about Reebok as well, do you remember the pump, Gaz?
I do remember the pump.
Yeah.
I do, and I'm going to just take a little bit of umbrage about that. I used to wear Chelsea's all the time, dude. Chelsea's were cool.
I think you might have just proved the point.
The thing about like the Reebok pump, for instance, is it worked in the time period that it came out. That comes out today, it does not work. The 90s, especially the early 90s, was a completely different time frame. And it makes me sad to say that was 34 years ago when the Reebok pump debuted. And the athletes that they gave it to at the time were not nearly to the stardom that they are now. If you look at basketball shoes and who they're given to, cream of the crop in terms of play and also moving the needle. But back then, the players that got them, like the Reebok pump, it was a flashy move, so they gave it to flashy players. And they even tried to get tennis involved. Michael Chang was a player that was boring. Like, he was great on the tennis court, but as far as like a personality, that's why it didn't really sell. Great idea, wrong guy. And we'll talk about tennis shoes later, because I do have a tennis shoe sitting right over here. But it's just a brand that is going to struggle to bring itself back to prominence. And unfortunately, Shaq, Allen Iverson, they're old now. So it's tough to reach newer voices if you're going with older people. You know what I'm saying? So like it's trying to bridge the gap, and sneakers is always going to be fighting that battle. And I'm sure we'll get into that at some point.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you say, when you talk about like the Reebok pump and some other those items that you mentioned there, it was a gimmick, wasn't it? And it was gimmick sold then. I think
Yes.
people are a little bit wiser now to purchases, and a gimmick like that, it just isn't going to cut it. Now, I've seen the new shoes that obviously Shaq was talking about on his show. Well, first of all, do people wear high tops, or is it just me who wears high tops and thinks high tops are cool? No, cool.
No, I don't think that's the case. But Gaz, unless you have an opinion about high tops, you look like you're itching to say something about high tops.
No. I was just going to say. I mean, obviously, I don't. I know that I know Beans sort of loves them as such, but I was just again curious just to know whether Beans is out on his own sort of thing, or where are they in terms of sort of popularity and who wears them and almost what do they wear them for? As you say, for what purpose, and is it just a look? Is it a style? Is it is it for a sport, etc., etc.? So I'm just curious about that, really.
So I'm gonna put this back at you at a question. If you watch basketball, I don't know if either of you watch any type of basketball of any kind. How many high tops, true high tops, do you see out on the court?
Not as many.
No.
Not
If
as many.
any.
Yeah,
If
not
any.
many, no.
The concept of a high top has changed more to what they call like a mid top now.
Mm.
So high tops are an old school idea, and there's really only a handful of shoes. This comment talking about Blazers. Blazer highs could kind of sort of be grandfathered in, but most people wear Blazer lows now. Jordan 1s are the shoe that I think of when it comes to high top shoes, because it was the first of its kind in terms of Air Jordans. It is still recognizable. They still make a ton of money off of it, and people still buy them and wear them. I wear them seasonally or with long pants. So if I, let's say, go to work and I wear a pair, you'll see me wear high tops, but you'll never see me wear high tops with shorts. Some people do. I don't. I mostly like low tops now in my older age. So I would say that it probably is true that the demographic of people who wear high tops is an older demographic, and it's less likely that you're going to see people wearing true high tops all the time, unless they're maybe like the old Converse Chuck All-Stars or something like that. But for the most part, even basketball players are wearing low to mid top shoes, and that's just the way that it works now. I think that it's fashionable, and high tops, I hate to say it, they kind of make you look old.
Oh no.
Well said, dude.
Yeah. Well, I've got the grey whiskers to back it up as well. So yeah, you mentioned there we've had a query there from Paul Kelly from the Seismic Cinema podcast, and he says, "Hey fellas, what do you think of the dirty worn trainer look that came into fashion a while back and cost an arm and a leg? Night blazers all the way."
That's a high fashion thing. It's really tied to, like, I think of Golden Goose is a brand that you see a lot where, well, it's Italian leather, or it's designed by these people and it's meant to be dirty, and never going to buy something like that for that price. If you want a worn shoe, go out and buy yourself a pair of shoes, wear the hell out of them, and call it a day, because I firmly believe that you wear the shoes that you buy. If you're a collector and you have a bunch of historical pieces, fine. But for me, everything in my collection, there's about 60 of them now, every single one of them has been worn. And when they become useless, they will get thrown away, because they are an item of utility. You wear shoes no matter how fashionable they are. That's the point. So to answer the question, I hate it. It's stupid. I'm glad it's gone away.
I've got to be honest, dude. Like my collection isn't as big as yours. Probably got about 40 pieces in it, and there's certain shoes, because the weather over here sucks, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
I will not wear if there's the slightest chance of rain, because I don't want to get them dirty or soiled.
Mm-hmm. Totally
That's
fair.
No, I get that. I mean, I get that. I mean, going back to Matty, what you're saying about, people that collect and stuff. In a way, I wish I'd got the foresight or the forethought to go out there and think, right, okay, I'm going to buy a pair of sneakers, and I reckon that in 30 years' time, these are going to be worth some money. So I'm not going to wear them, even though I really like them and they look really comfy and I actually want to wear them, but I'm not going to, because in 30 years' time, somebody might actually want them as a collectible. I just haven't got the forethought for that. If I see a pair of sneakers that I like, I'll go out and buy them and I'll wear them. Simple as that.
I'll tell you, that is stressful. Like, you say that, but it's so stressful to try and think about that now. The people who collect almost all of those pieces, they didn't buy them for foresight and that they might be worth something. A lot of times they've searched for them. They have the pair that came out 30 years ago that means something to them. Or if they retro or re-release something that came out, let's say 20 years ago, a lot of times they'll want to go get that original one, because the newer model of it, the new reissue of it, is not going to be the same. So collecting, I think, is less so for financial gain. Those people have their own place. They basically buy and flip and make a ton of money, and God bless them. But the real collectors, their collections are huge because they have pieces that are critical to the culture, right? And we're going to talk about that, but critical to the history, and they mean something to where they maybe haven't reissued that ever again. And so they want a piece of that history. And a lot of times it takes them a decade or more to get them. So when I think of collecting, that's what I think. But there is a mental health problem that goes into the collecting of it, the mass buying of it, the constant want to convince yourself that you need this new thing that is coming out. And that is a difficult thing to get around. I will completely admit to that.
I mean, you're talking there about sneaker culture. So just define that for us. What does that phrase actually mean?
That phrase means something different to me than I think it means to a lot of people. But when I think of the culture, I think of the people that are involved. And in any culture, you're going to have different demographics, different subgroups of people who exist and live and sort of, I guess, go into the culture in a different way. And that's kind of the way that it should be. But at the end of the day, the culture, the people who are involved in it, they don't have to do X, Y, and Z to be allowed in. They have to love the shoes themselves for their own reasons, and they can live it their own way. To me, that's the key, is that the culture around it is, we all understand at the end of the day, whether we come from New York, whether we come from Great Britain, whether we come from Australia, that we all love the shoes for the shoes themselves. And how we do it, why we do it, all can be different. But Beans, you and I are the same in the sense that you love them, I love them. We may love different things. We may collect them differently. We may wear them differently, but we love them. And that makes us part of the culture. That's the culture to me. And a lot of people will say that culture is having been in a certain time, wearing certain fits, all that. It's the people and the love of the shoes at the end of the day, period.
Fair play. It's a good answer, that, isn't it, dude?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I say, I mean, I was never was, and I'm not at the moment in, that sort of sneaker culture. Such I certainly don't have anywhere near as many sort of items as Adam or yourself, Matty. So I sort of, and I get it, and I get, and I remember that being, you know, you would go through, like I say, you'd go through sort of your Converse sort of phase, and you'd have all of your designs and your patterns and all, and you'd have like truckloads of them, and it'd be like, I get it, but then like in my mind, it's like, well, you can't sort of wear them all, so just get like 2 or 3 pairs and then wear them out and then get some more. You know, you don't need like 15 pairs of them or whatever, but you're completely different, and I absolutely get that and I respect that.
Yeah, don't say that in front of my wife.
No.
She will wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah, I get that. Sorry.
If I may, about that part is, I think that, like I said, collecting, the way that we do things, what ended up happening for me with my wife, right? At first, she was kind of the same way, where you'd see a specific size box show up on the porch, and you kind of knew what it was, and how are you collecting all these? I don't understand why you need them all. And now, if you go down into my closet / her closet, you're going to find that her boxes are about the same as my boxes, because she realized that it's not about mass consumerism, especially since I've changed my ways. And I also said, well, you like to decorate at the holidays. And we went down into the crawl space, and 3/4 of our crawl space is holiday decorations of some sort for everything. And I told her that this is your collection. This is my collection. Everybody collects something. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that is tangible. Some people collect knowledge, right? They collect experiences, whatever it is. We all collect something. We all have mental health when it comes to collecting something. And at the end of the day, whether it's shoes or whatever, the people who judge you have something else in their life that they collect. They just don't realize it, or are in denial about the fact that they do.
Very true. That very true. And you know, I am a serial collector. In my last house, I had a double garage, had a bar in there, and I started just by putting, when I had a different beer, I put that bottle behind the bar, and sooner, well, it didn't really take that much time to collect it. Actually, the amount I go through beer, the shelves were all full, and then I was buying extra shelves to put the beer bottles on.
Yeah.
And when I came to move house, and the wife said, "You are absolutely not moving empty beer bottles with you. They need to go." It was several trips to the tip to get rid of them all. Shocking.
But that is healthy to have boundaries, and that's another aspect of my collecting that I realized. Look, I've got boxes down there, and they're display cases, so to speak. They're more organization. But if these are full, we're at full capacity. And if I want something after that, what am I going to get rid of? How am I going to get rid of it? I came up with that because that's healthy for me. I mean, I could start bringing them all up here, right? And then the boxes are all over here, but that would be insane. It's going to happen one day, but it'll be insane.
No, dude, you've got a lot of self-discipline and control there, probably more than I possess. So, just out of interest, what piece of footwear was it that really got you involved in this? What was the first brand or the first product that really suckered you in?
When I was a kid, the Nike Pump was out. It was the coolest thing ever. Absolute coolest thing ever. When you're 12, 13 years old and you see that, and you're impressionable then, so you end up looking at these products, these athletes, and you're like, I've got to have that. But to kind of go back a little bit, the reason I wanted it so bad is because my childhood, I wasn't cool ever. I wasn't popular, and I think I felt like an outcast. And so having something that other people had, that other people thought was cool, would validate my existence in this world somehow. But my parents were reasonable, practical, smart, and also not rich. So they were not going to drop that kind of money, which back then $100 on a pair of shoes was a ton of money, especially when we were buying things for utility. We would buy clothes for the new school year. That stuff had to last all year. So it didn't happen until I was a little bit older, and I finally got a pair of them, and I wore them out so much. The fad had already gone by, and that was the first one that I fell in love with. And then it took another 30 years or something like that or 20 years to really get back into the game again. And when I got back into the game with my own money, my own job, it was a different thing. And now I'm fortunate to be able to live this life that I have. But the Reebok Pump, man, that shoe just was unbelievable at the time. And I wish I still had a pair of them, but if I bought them now, I'd never wear them. So I don't have them for that nostalgia purpose, but I'll always love it. It was the coolest thing.
Yeah. Well, interesting enough, similar to yourself, really, you know, and I was talking to my mum about this recently. So we grew up together. You remember me, like British Knights. I loved them as a teen.
Yeah.
They were shoes that I wore. And like we said back then, we're talking the early 90s. About 120, 140 quid for a pair of shoes. And my mum literally said, look, we can't afford that kind of money. If you want it, you're going to have to save up and buy them for yourself. So I did. And I bought, funnily enough, I could have had the high tops and I went for the low tops. And because I like the neon blue look to them. And, I love those shoes and I wore them to death, pretty much till they had a hole in the sole. A nice little bit of rhyme in there. But yeah, and I loved them and they were fantastic. And then I replaced them. I bought them with another pair, which weren't quite as cool, to be fair. Had a big red tongue sticking out the back of them, out the front of them, sorry. Literally looked like I was wearing cricket pads.
Nice.
They were extreme. But yeah, I loved them. And just recently, you're talking about re-releases. British Knights have, obviously they're struggling. They've fallen on hard times now. They pinned their future on stars like MC Hammer and Rap and didn't really take the sports and the growth of the basketball stars that seriously. And they fell by the wayside. But they've just recently re-released some of those shoes that I loved. And I'll be honest with you, I picked up a pair of the high tops for 50 quid, for 50 quid. And I agonized over whether to buy it, probably for about 2 weeks. Now, if you'd put a price tag on it for £250, yeah, I'd have been all in. That would make sense to me. That child was 120 back then, 250 seems, that seems good commensurate. That seems fair. But the fact that it was £50, it's cheaper. It's like, I don't know. Should I be walking around in these shoes or not? I don't know. Well, what were your take on British Knights? We'll share some shoes later. I've got my pair of British Knights down here, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. And you can question why I love them so much. That's absolutely fine.
No, you asked me about them, if I recall, and you wanted my opinion. And I think my opinion was, do you like them? Answer is yes. That doesn't matter. I will die on that hill because I think that is extremely important, that you wear what you want for the reasons that you want. So British Knights getting involved with people that were hot at the time, similar to what we talked about with Reebok, right? Where you get involved with people who are hot at the time. MC Hammer, no offense to him, he's not listening, but he was a fad, right? He was a fad in hip hop at the time and not something that stands the test of time. I listen to some of his stuff and have these nostalgia pulls from when I was in younger grade school, because that's how old I was. But over the course of time, these brands that latched themselves on had a moment. There's a ton of them here in the States. What they have going for them now is, Gaz, I think you talked about how it's huge now and it's blown up. About the last 10 years or so, is they have the ability to get in and get to the people like you, Beans, who remember them from back in the day. They don't have to blow you away. They just have to be what they were, because what they were to you is special, and it was special to those people. And so this sort of blip in the radar in terms of sneakers being this huge fashionable thing for almost everybody. Hey, now we can produce something. We don't have to sell it for a ton. We don't probably make it for a ton of money, but there's going to be people who buy it because it'll be like, hey, I remember that. And I think that's kind of a good place for a lot of these brands to be. And if your goal is that, then I think they're in a golden space, and they are a legacy act, but they are allowed to come back because the market as a whole is open to brands like that. And so people like you get to basically reap the benefits of this new market that we live in.
Yeah. I must admit, I love them. And to be fair, the wife doesn't hate them. So, that's 2 ticks in the box there. Yeah, so just out of interest then. Yeah, just out of interest. Is there any shoes over the years that you wished you'd picked up or wished you'd kept hold of that you still had in your, and I'll use the word collection in inverted commas because we can all deny it's a collection if we like.
Yes. So there's a ton if you go back in time to 20 years ago that I wish I could have picked up, but see, those I don't count because I wasn't involved then. But there are some that I've had that I got rid of. One of them is a Jordan 4. They're re-releasing it next year. I got rid of it because I bought it used, paid money for it used, and then sold it for more than I'd paid for it. And I thought, well, I'll get rid of it. It's an older shoe anyway. I don't have that much time, because there's I would say a 5 to 8 year window that you have to wear shoes, and then you start kind of taking a risk because the depending on how it's made, the rubber, all the foam, and that starts to break down just over time. And so I was kind of hedging my bets there. But I do have a shoe over here, if you don't mind me showing, that's kind of related to this. So when I got back into the game, I've told this story on the pod before that I went to this resale shop with a friend. I didn't know what it was at the time, and we bought some things. And he bought this one Jordan 4, and I regretted it as soon as we got home because I learned and was like, damn it, I should have bought that one. So this came out this year, and I did for the first time ever, I doubled up on it. So there's this bad boy right here. Try to get it into the camera if I can.
Nice.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, there you go. So this is the white cement Jordan 4. This is one of the OG, as they call it, colorways of that shoe from Michael Jordan back at the time. So my friend bought this shoe, and he still has it. He's out of the game now, and I hate that he has it because he's out of it. Like, he should not be allowed to have this. And so that was one I'd wanted, but it took him 10 years to reissue it. So I had to wait a long time because I'm very practical. Even though I spend a lot of money on shoes, I'm not going to go back and pay $500 for something that's so old because I don't have a lot of time with it. I want to be able to wear it. So these came out a couple months ago, and I bought 2 pairs and said that way I'll have them now for 10 years if it takes another 10 years. So that's one. Oh, that's the only time I will do that, by the way. I do not believe in doubling up like that, but in this one, it took so long and I wanted it so bad. So I actually went out and bought it, and I love it. Absolutely love it. I feel like my collection is complete now because that's one of the ones that I really, really wanted.
Yeah, that is a nice looking shoe, isn't it?
Yeah, it was absolutely smart, and it in a way takes me back in, and I suppose the only contribution, just I say to this in terms of sort of sneaker sort of history as such, was sort of back in the day, and it must have been, I don't know, sort of early 90s maybe, and I had. And I can't remember the effective model, but basically I would say like an original Nike Jordan white and red sort of high top, and they were only one pair high top really that I had. And now obviously now move forward, they're like, oh my god, like they go for like truckload sort of thing. And I just, as you said though, Matty, I didn't really know, and I just wore it and wore them, and then they get scuffed, and then they get a bit torn, and then they go a bit discolored, and X, Y, and Z, and then eventually you sort of like, oh, I'll just chuck them out, sort of thing, because that's what you do, you know, pair of old sneakers, you just chuck them out. But now with the sneaker culture, I'm a bit like, damn, like, you know, why did I do that? But back in the day, I didn't know.
But who would know that?
Exactly.
Nobody would know that. Nobody would know that. You did exactly the right thing, because the shoe that you're talking about, that changed everything. It changed everything in the way that people viewed athletes on the court. It changed everything in terms of what was cool on your foot during school when you were growing up, like all these things, and you'd have no idea. So if I had a pair of those, I would have worn the hell out of them, and I would have done the same exact thing, because that's what you do. And I think that speaks perfectly. What you just said is perfect for people who they try not to crease their shoes, they try not to wear them, and I'm like, you can do that if you want to. I'm not going to gatekeep in that way, but the whole point is to wear them because you love them and how you feel in them. It doesn't matter if somebody says how great they are. It doesn't matter if you're walking down and somebody recognizes them. They feel good to me, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
Amen. Just out of interest, guys, are we allowed to call them sneakers? Because it's trainers, really.
Well, I'm trying desperately just to say sneakers, but I really want to say trainers.
No. You should be true to who you are, and but that's a great point though, because the international nature of all of this, it's not just a states thing. And honestly, the reason that they're called sneakers is because they were tied to like thievery. So maybe that's not a great thing, right? But when I went over there, and I was there 2023, and I didn't go to any shops or anything, but you know, wearing a few things, people would say like, I love your trainers. And see, in my mind, I knew exactly what that was, because the culture is international. You kind of got to know how people live the culture all over the world, and you got to respect how it works over there. And I love that. I love that there are people who listen to and watch my content who are from other countries, because you get that perspective. You understand what matters to them, brands that matter to them, certain shoes that matter, trends that matter in a different way. And it's great to get those different perspectives in everything, but in this particular topic, I love that. So call them trainers, because that's what they're called to you, and that's how you should do it. Do not change for me at all.
It's trainers from now on.
It's trainers. Yeah, they are trainers. They are, to be fair. That's what we call them. So Gaz talked about the trainers there that he previously owned and how, he can never have foreseen that have been as popular as they are. Is there any way of spotting trends in, I nearly said sneakers then, trends in trainers? And is there any way of just spotting those future holy grails that you should want to keep hold of?
Yes. I think if they're tied to people that have a lasting effect on things. So now, like, you see a lot of celebrities in this game, and you'll see trends on certain things that you just kind of have an idea. But I will say this, is they're fewer and far between now, things that are going to make a huge difference. And I think that there are certain shoes also that nostalgia, when done correctly, is going to be a major pull. But I think more often than not, I don't think there are going to be shoes that are going to stand the test of time the way that they once did, because you see these new models that come out, just like everything else, we rinse and repeat, spit it out, and it's gone. We're on to the next thing. And so I don't think you're going to see things last 20, 30 years. Even now, the shoes that people thought were fire 10 years ago, they're like, oh, that person's not really big anymore, or what have you. And that's why I think that the culture in general may be on the downturn in terms of how is it going to survive, because how are younger people, what are they going to care about, right? I know what I care about, but that doesn't mean that's what they're going to care about. So is there a foolproof way? No. But if it's tied to a celebrity or somebody that's big internationally, most likely it's going to have a moment. Are we going to feel the same way in 20 years? That I think is a lot different. I don't think that that's going to be the case as often as it used to be. Maybe that's a non-answer, but that's my answer.
You see, I think that, you go back, for me growing up and, born in 73. So, by the mid 80s, just started to watch a bit of American sports and got into sort of, obviously American football, and then thinking, well, who was decent at the time? I mean, they're shit now, but, obviously the Bears, so you start watching the Bears, and then because you watch the Bears, you then start watching the Bulls, and then you think, well, the Bulls are decent, and then all of a sudden, like Michael Jordan comes along, and you're like,
yep,
holy hell, this guy's just transcended like everything pretty much. And obviously, and I mean, if you watch is it Netflix documentary and stuff about him and where the companies that they went to before they went to Nike sort of thing, you think, wow, in a way that they got lucky as such. But Michael Jordan comes along, and then you think, well, then Tiger Woods comes along and he's just transcended like crap loads of stuff. And I know there's various misdemeanors and stuff and blah, blah, blah. But then you look at the absolute massive like sporting icons out there now. And I don't perceive there to be like people like that are absolutely instantly recognizable outside of their own sport, if that makes sense. And you look at someone like, okay, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, you look at like Travis Kelce, non-American football fans, would they go, who's that guy? They probably would. Back in the day, if you saw Michael Jordan, you knew who he was, and if you saw Tiger Woods, you knew who he was. And these guys just, well, I mean, you obviously correct me if you think I'm wrong, Matty. I just don't think that there's those massive global icons that are going to transcend everything, music, sport, youth culture, everything else. I just don't see it.
This podcast is about ready to get really old, because I agree with you in the sense, and let's take music, okay? Let's get out of sneakers for a minute and let's go to music. I think to myself every day, what is this generation going to take with them in music in 20 or 30 years, right? You guys are a little bit older than I am, but I remember the cassette tape. I remember the CD. I remember physically owning and having a piece of this music. I remember taping stuff off the radio. I remember burning CDs. I mean, this progression that we went through to get to the digital era now, where everything is at your fingertips. And that's why I've gone back to vinyl. There's vinyls right off the camera over here, because I'm like, no, I'm going to go back and own the things that I love, right? You're totally right in the sense that people don't transcend anymore. And the reason they don't transcend is because our brains now, with phones and everything, we just cycle through everything, cycle through it, rinse and repeat. Every day we're scrolling like this, and we see something, we capture it for a second, and then we're moving on to the next thing. And I wonder that about lots of things. Movies. Jaws just turned 50 years old in the States. It's one of the biggest blockbusters of all time. People care about it, but are they going to care about movies like the Oscars? Nobody remembers who won the Oscar 10 years ago for Best Picture. They just don't, because our brains are different now. society is different now.
Yeah.
And that's why I think both of you have a point in, I don't know what this looks like in the future, but I do think, to bring it back to myself egotistically, that people like me have the ability with this platform that I have to keep that alive, to bridge the gap a little bit. And I love that I have the ability to do that, to where I've had many people get in touch with me to say, I'm not really a sneaker person, but I love learning about what it is by listening to you. That's how you do it. That's how you get the grassroots of all of this, instead of tying it to some transcendent athlete or some transcendent person, because now we have too much insight. They're all terrible people, like,
Yeah.
and so there's people like us that are going to keep it alive in our microtransactions between people. This right here, in 20 years, somebody may pick it up somewhere and be like, oh, I learned something here. And that person may continue on the legacy. That's how it's going to be done. It's not going to be done with Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce or whoever.
Yeah.
It just is not anymore.
No, and we always do say, if anybody does learn something from Tallboy Radio, God help you.
That's not true at all. Like, I know you're making fun of yourself, but I just did an episode about this, about people who have platforms and us, right? We may think that our platforms are nothing because, quote, nobody watches, nobody listens or whatever, but we have touched a life or two in some realm. And that matters because that has a cascading effect. And whether we think we're worthy of that or not, by just merely having our faces and voices out here, to me, that is a responsibility. And I think some people take it seriously. There are people who probably listen to Tallboy Radio every week, have for 290 episodes, and it matters to them. So you can make fun of yourself, but I'm going to bring you back and tell you that what you do matters, because some people do give a shit.
No, I appreciate that. I do. We have a very self-deprecating British sense of humor here.
We do, but it's it's interesting. There's obviously people that I know and sort of socialize with out doing sports and stuff, and they ask me what do I do spare time. So I've obviously played a lot of golf, and then they say, well, what else? I say, well, podcast, and then did you do what? And then obviously I talk about it and I mentioned, they say, oh, what's it called? And it was only last week, like there's a couple of lads at the golf club, and they went, oh, we listened to a couple. There was that crackpot ex-police officer. No, not you. No, not you. And he's that ex like NYP. I was like, I know who you're talking about now. And he said, oh, it's pretty cool. And we were listening and we were laughing. And it was like, and I say to Ad, we do the podcast. I do it really for no other reason other than really to meet guys like yourself, different people from different walks of life from all over the world. And I learn things. If I didn't do this, I'll probably lead a boring life anyway, but I'd lead even more of a boring life just because I do this because I enjoy learning things. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy that test of knowledge and opinion. And there's times when people come on and I massively disagree with them, and you try to talk it through and you try to rationalize with them and so on. And I do it because I want to educate myself, and that's why I do it. The flip side is there'll be people out there that listen to us and go, oh, actually, I've learned something as well. And for me, that's part of it.
I'll never forget the Flat Earth episode that you guys did a really long time ago. And I listened to it because I loved the approach that you took in why we're doing this. One thing, this is not to get political, but it is true, is that people don't want to hear anything that is not something that they've considered, right? So like flat earthers have been around forever. I don't believe in that stuff, but it is interesting to hear about it from that person's perspective, and you guys opening your world to say, okay, this is your thing, go ahead, and this is your platform.
Yeah.
There's value in that. You don't have to agree for there not to be value. Somebody may, that person at least got their words out. That's that's their ability. And we have the ability to do that. This has gone way off the rails and we can bring it back, but no, but it's 100% true. And getting to meet people, to go back to, and to even bring it back to this, right, is I've connected with so many people through this journey, through a shoe, right? Like something so stupid that sounds like, how could that be possible? It's the culture that I talked about earlier. The people who say, I never could talk about this with anybody. They found me, contacted me, and now they feel like they have a voice in this world that says and speaks their language. There's major power in that. And I take that very seriously. And I love that. I love knowing that somebody in this world, this massive world, found my voice out of everybody and was like, that's my guy. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice thought. And like I said, the episode we did with the Flat Earther, it was important because I just wanted somebody to understand. Because you join these groups on Facebook. I'm not a Flat Earther. I don't believe it. I still believe it's a globe. God bless the bloke. And I appreciate him giving up an hour of his time very early in the morning on Australia. Don't get me started on time zones with that guy, you know, but that's another matter. And yeah, we wanted to understand why he thought the way that he did, because I think if you can understand a little bit about how people think and how people believe, you understand a little bit more about people in general. And that's why it was important to us. And what the other thing that I really need to understand then, dude, 3D printing. Okay, 3D printing, will that have an input on sneakers, it's trainers, design?
It already has. I mean, there's already 4D printed shoes. Adidas has certainly gone down that route. Now they've printed like the outsole, so the bottom of it, which I think is a good idea. You can print a bunch of different things. I also think that 3D printing has a place in merchandising, marketing, things of this nature. I mean, I've definitely seen people do some pretty cool things where like they make ornaments, they make little trinkets, right? Things that could be a selling point for people that love this stuff, because it's not, if you like sneakers, a lot of times you're buying a whole bunch of other stuff that's branded properly. If you're down that road, like I'm not one of those people, like you're not going to see me with like keychains and stuff all over the place. You see me with the shoes, we'll call it a day. But I think that 3D printed shoes, now shout out to my friend Mike from the Sneaker History Podcast, because he just had a guy on who talked about the future of that, and that it is a viable product, that people are going, or companies are going to be making affordable footwear through 3D printing. And you see that sometimes on like TikTok shops, these shoes that cost like $20, 3D printed. And sometimes that's all people want. Will it get to the place that it is now, where it's being sold for high prices and people have a nostalgia pull up on it? No, probably not. But utility, function, 100%. It's in play, and it's going to continue to be in play. And I think that you're going to see more of it for your prosumer customer, right? And I think that there is value to it. How long it takes or how much of the market space it takes up, I have no idea, but it's already got a presence somewhere.
What about stuff like Crocs then, dude? Does that have a place anywhere?
Yes, of course it does. Yeah. I mean, okay, so I have Crocs downstairs. I use them for house shoes. I wear them to the pool. They serve a perfect purpose. Crocs had a moment about 2 years ago because this man, Salehi Bembury is his name, he made some Crocs that looked unlike any other Croc that you saw. People love them. People were wearing Crocs, young people, as a fashion statement. I could never, absolutely could never. Utility, 100%. But do Crocs have a space? Yeah, they do. Because, again, you like what you like, you wear what you wear, the right person makes the right design for the right amount of money, and boom, it's on the streets, ready to go. That's how this works. And so you could name off 10 different shoes that sound ridiculous. They all can have their moment because that's how it works. There is space for everything.
And what about Hey Dudes as well? Like, you know, so Crocs recently, well, I wouldn't say recently, they brought out Hey Dudes, didn't they?
Yes.
So I'm seeing those now, and they're getting everywhere. And I've seen a pair in the States that I want so badly, a pair of PBR Hey Dudes that aren't available over here in Europe.
Okay. Yes. Will they be hyped? No. The Hey Dudes, I don't think will ever be in that space, but do they have the ability to be mass produced? Yes. I did an episode, 4 months ago, Skechers, massive global brand. Most people know it, but most people assume or associate it with a certain type of person, a certain age person, certain type of jobs, all that kind of stuff. Did you guys know that in terms of global revenue, it's number 3 in the world because they cater to everybody? And so, Hey Dudes, Crocs, they cater to everybody. And if they make a hit in the culture, fine, but that's not their game. Their game is to sell to everybody. And so you're going to see Hey Dudes all over the place, the way you see Crocs all over the place, and that's Skechers everywhere, because that's who they cater to. They cater to a mass audience. They mass produce their stuff. It's much cheaper than it is like $225 for a Jordan 4. People are not paying that to run it into the ground. They're just not. You're not going to see nurses wearing that. You're not going to see people who are on their feet all the time. But that kind of comfortable stuff, yeah, always have a place.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Crocs, don't own a pair, but I absolutely, Beans is actually wearing a pair now. But you know, I don't own a pair. I absolutely can see why people find them comfy, and as you said, Matt, it's that I suppose that functionality of them, that they do a job for whatever it is that they want to do. You know, I say, do you see many people out? No, not really. But just a question. We sort of mentioned it earlier, and I just want to get your thoughts on. There's a brand in particular that's had a massive resurgence. Obviously, is the New Balance, and you look at it and you think,
Oh, yes.
So you look at it and you think, and you know, I'm 52. Beans is 52, 51, 52 next week. Sorry, dude.
Whoa, you're adding a year. Whoa.
I'm a whole 2 weeks older than him. I keep forgetting that. So yeah, but back in the day, and genuinely, people that wore New Balance, and you got the big N logo, and people genuinely were like, "Is that like a Nike knockoff type thing?" Because they thought the N was Nike, and it wasn't. And all of a sudden, like, the New Balance have just gone like stratospheric, and they are like massive now. I suppose what changed? What was the defining factor from them going from effectively and also ran where they weren't quite sort of, you know, the poor relation in the party sort of thing. It was, you know, not many people bought them, to now like lots and lots and lots of people want them, and they're absolutely all over the place. What was that defining change as such?
Well, I would say that it's probably an opportunity in terms of them being a part of this sneaker culture, this sneaker resurgence. New Balance, though, has always been a solid brand, running, especially athletic wear. But here in the DC area, Washington, DC area, the New Balances were really big on the streets. A lot of people wanted them. And there's people that work near me, 2 cubicles over, who we were talking just 2 weeks ago about how anything in the 900s, man, people wanted those. And New Balances have always been expensive, but New Balances, especially great ones, have always been associated with middle-aged dudes who wear jean shorts and high white socks and go out and cut the grass and stuff. And that's just the way that they were. But with the pandemic, what you saw is this oversaturation of popular things. So Air Jordans, Nike Dunks, all of that. We were buying them so fast, and people were reselling them for so much money that Nike tried to act on that and was like, we're just going to flood the market with this. And then things took a downturn, and they were sitting on the shelves. And New Balance realized that they had an opportunity to get into the game by doing something that Nike was not doing, and that was providing a comfortable shoe that stood the test of time in terms of the designs of them. And they're giving you extremely premium materials, an extremely quality made shoe. And that is something that Nike does not do consistently. If you go, let's say that this Jordan 4 over here, there's been, I think, 4 or 5 retros of that over 30 plus years. Every single one of them is different.
Yeah.
When you go and buy a New Balance, every single one of them is the same. Consistently quality, you know what you're getting. And now you put names on it, you give it stories, and New Balance has the ability now to get in the game because, yeah, they're $250, but you're getting $250 worth of quality materials there. Different color blocking, different color schemes, things that make people go, whoa, I've never seen that before, which is how Jordan Brand got big in the first place. So they do have that ability, but I do fear watching the market, watching what's coming out, that we're running out of ideas with New Balances because there's only so many pink New Balances that you can say, whoa, that looks great. Then all of a sudden, you know, so it's very cyclical, but New Balance saw that these brands were seeing a downturn because of this oversaturation, and they said, let's do our thing and let's get in there. By the way, the made in the UK ones go for so much money. Like, they are so expensive, and they're quality made at just like everything else. So there's a lot of history there. It just doesn't have the same history as Jordans do because they're not tied to Michael Jordan, but they are tied to people, and they are tied to regions of the world that just didn't get a spotlight because things like this didn't exist.
So do you think that in terms of New Balance moving forward, and you've said that there's only so many effective new styles of the same trainer, do you see them changing their sort of, I don't mean their design, I mean the actual type of trainer? Because so in order for them to survive, do you see that them going down that route and saying, well, actually, rather than just changing the design or the color scheme or whatever, but fundamentally the trainer is the same? Do you see them having to then become a bit more diverse in terms of high tops, mid top, low tops, or whatever it may be, just to survive?
I wouldn't say just to survive, but I think in order to to continue to keep their place as a solid number 3 in the culture, they're already doing that. So they just came out with a new model called the 204L. It's like an indoor football, your football shoe. And it's a new model. They've got a couple of colorways right of it. But they said, well, wait a minute, let's have this one store. Kith is a big international sort of store. Let's have them design it and let's get that running off the ground. Back in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, they had the 550, which was a basketball shoe. That's kind of how they were getting into the game in terms of like low top basketball shoes. We've seen that. They're doing loafers now, New Balance loafers. So they're trying to get in on that game too. So they are actually trying to evolve. I have to give New Balance credit in the fact that they are just throwing stuff against the wall in terms of new designs and seeing what goes, because they know the 900s, 990s, 992s, all that stuff is going to sell. So they're trying to continue to reinvent, and they're giving these new shoes, new designs to people who have done really great work in the past and saying, let's see if we can make this an actual thing. So they're already doing it.
Cool. So one of the things you mentioned there as well, dude, is like the resale market. And you mentioned, obviously, you've sold things on and you made a bit of a profit. Now, near us, we have a Nike outlet store, and that place is like a battle zone if you go in there. To try and pick up a pair
Is it
of
really?
Honestly, yeah, because people will go in and they will make they sell them off, and some of them are like really discounted. So that silver pair that I shared with you on,
Yeah.
on Facebook, they were marked down from I think 205, and I picked them up for 35 quid. You know what I mean? So when I looked at them, I thought, am I going to wear them that often? Or is the wife going to moan at me when I do? Well, it doesn't really matter. It's 35 quid. It's not the end of the world. But people will go and pick these shoes up and they will sell them online for, marked up 2-3 times. And you'll see, first thing in the morning, I've nipped up there and I just popped in just to see if they got any Steelers stuff, because sometimes they have some like Steelers like jerseys and things that they'll sell off quite reasonably priced. And it is a battle zone in there. People are just trying to get hold of their Googling what things are going for. And they will pick them up and they will resell them on. And then they will make a living out of it as well, dude.
Yeah. It's definitely changed, but I would say the last 10 or so years has seen a ramp up. I think it was in 2015 or 2016 when these two marketplaces, GOAT and StockX, came about. And that's really the main driver for people reselling shoes. But reselling has always existed. It's just been different. A lot of people bartered back in the day. So you'd pick up something that you knew would be able to be traded for something else. But people were chasing in that realm because you knew something even back in the day was hot and people were going to want it. So it was a little bit different. It was more personal. You would go and pay actual money or trade shoes or what have you. Now it's impersonal, where you can pretty much go onto an app, look and see what's available, look at the going price, kind of bid and all that kind of stuff, and do what you got to do. One thing that has changed is the pandemic, and I think it was Gaz, you talked about the Michael Jordan documentary. It was The Last Dance, I think it was called, that came out right when the pandemic started, or 2 months in. And oh my goodness, everything changed. People were buying shoes like they were going to stop being produced. And the resale value went sky high to the point that everything sold out. Everything sold for 2 or 3 times as much as it was. And it was absurd, just absurd. Everything. Like British Knights would have gone for 4 or 5 times its value just because, and that's how it worked. Now it's a lot different. Now things are a lot more reasonable. Shoes a lot of times come out. You can get them for retail a little bit more than that. So resale isn't this big evil thing that people make it out to be. It's just part of capitalism. It's part of economics. It's part of just how kind of life works. I mean, scalping for tickets used to be a thing back in the day when we used to go to box offices to get tickets. So I don't see it as a problem. I think that there are people in the culture who take it as they culture vulture, we call it, where they go in and they're not about the actual culture. They go and buy all the shoes so they can resell them and make a profit. And I don't like that, but I also don't say that they're not, like, they can do that. They can do whatever they want. So that's just my thing. I know a lot of people say, oh, resale sucks and all that. But I'm like, sometimes a shoe comes out and you don't get it when it comes out. You have the ability to get it afterward for a reasonable price. So in some ways, I think it has rounded itself out. And it's a better thing than it used to be. But it's always going to exist. It just is, because we like to collect stuff, right? Yeah. Everybody likes to collect stuff, especially if it's something that you think that you can't get. We want it. So there's always going to be that market inefficiency or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Just out of interest then. So we talked about what things are like going forward. The way that we consume our media, like you say, is very instantaneous, and that causes things to change and brands to change, and people want to want new things on a much faster rate than they ever have done. So who do you think are the best innovators out there at the moment?
Are we talking about people who are actually designing? Are we talking about content creators? Because that is a different topic. Like, I think the leaders in this industry right now are not actually designing anything. I think they're actually behind microphones doing a lot of this work. There's a ton of them. I mean, I think that the future is a little bit murky in this, because I do think that even the content creators here, we're all in the same relative age bracket, mid 30s to late 40s, and you don't see a lot of super young people doing this.
Yeah.
But there's just, I mean, I could name a bunch of them that I personally know, but honestly, if you go and look at sneaker content, you kind of know, right? It's not even popularity. Honestly, most of the best creators that I know are not popular. They are doing the grassroots work. They are talking about the history. They're connecting with people on a very deep level. These brands are not doing that. These brands don't give a shit about us. They don't care. As long as you still buy stuff, they don't care about me. They don't care about me doing content about it as long as I keep buying. And so even the designers, right? They talk about, oh, I love the culture. Yeah, because they continue to buy your shoes and you kind of feel a certain way. But those people are so disconnected. They're rich, right? They're super rich people. We don't connect to that at all. I mean, a lot of people in this country seem to connect to super rich people, but that's for another story for another time. But like, I don't, right? Like, you have athletes who have all these big collections, and I'm like, these NFL athletes have disposable income that I'll never have.
Yeah.
And so I think that the people who are doing the best work, who are really innovating, are people who are just living regular lives. We go to work, we have kids, we come home, we cut our content, we put it out in the space, and we talk and connect with people who are doing the same exact thing. That's really where the money's being made. And you can see them on Instagram. I mean, Sneak This Podcast, My First Kicks, just a ton of people, right? We're all doing that kind of work. In Kicks We Trust out of Canada, I love those guys. There's just, I couldn't name them all, but we're all doing kind of the same thing. We're all relatively the same level, but we're all connecting with each other and the people that live this culture the way that everybody else does. Us poor people, right? That's how it's done. And so I think that's what you got to look at, Beans. I think you got to look at people like me, and that's how you're going to see the growth. If we can't do it, the brands are going to do it, because eventually people are just going to stop caring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just what you're on about, sort of brand growth as such, and if you make and the assumption, I suppose, that Nike 1, Adidas 2 in whichever order, and then sort of you mentioned like New Balance is third. Are there any that are sitting sort of just below that you feel as though maybe can move the top three from the podium as such? Is there anybody that you can see underneath them that you feel as I have, I suppose, the means, the will, the product line in order to do that?
No. Nike is, I looked at the numbers when I did the Skechers episode. I think they made like $51 billion in revenue, and Adidas was like 24. So Adidas is the only one that can really catch them, and they can't. And I think, like I said, Skechers is at 9 billion. So there's a major chasm between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
But right now, the trend is what they call runners. So Asics, Sauconys, New Balances. You're seeing a lot of 10-year-old models being used now, and they're really hyping the space. I don't get it, because I used to run marathons in those, so I see them as pure utility. I don't see them as very different. But is any brand up and coming that's going to catch them? 100% no. But there's an opportunity for these brands to get in and create their own space. If you're not trying to beat Nike, then you're doing good work, because you're not going to. Nike has the ability to pull so much history out, and nobody else has that. Like, nobody has Michael Jordan. You can't compete with that. And so until people like us die, then there's never going to be any way that that's going to change. But Asics and all these companies are going to carve their own space, and they're doing that now.
Yeah. It's weird you mentioned, Asics, just because, again, back in the day growing up, they were literally, they were running train. They were running trainers. That's what they were. That's what they based their whole model on. And I remember back in the day looking at them going, they actually looked like really, really comfortable trainers. Because they were used for running. Obviously, you'd have, it wasn't quite the foam sort of sole or the cushion sole or such, but they looked incredibly comfy. And then they were obviously designed quite sleek because you wouldn't want anything too heavy and stuff. And you actually thought that actually looks quite a smart trainer, but you would never, ever, ever consider it to be worn as a fashion item as such, or just because actually it was just a running trainer.
Yes.
Now, again, I'd be interesting just to see, I suppose, is there that crossover, because, I had a set of, a pair of Adidas, and I had the Sambas, and they were a smart pair of Sambas, and I'd wear them and I loved them and I wore them to death. And they were dead comfy and they look cool. And well, on others, maybe not me, but you think I'm going to have a pair of these Sambas, and they were really, really cool. And then what Adidas have done is that they've effectively re-released them, and they've now got different colors, they've got slightly different soles, etc.
Oh yeah.
And I suppose, give me the choice, I would probably now wear Adidas probably over Nike, and I would actually wear like some Under Armour. Under Armour one out there again that they've started to make some decent trainers and stuff. So again, I was just curious as to whether or not you felt as though there was anybody underneath, but I mean, Nike is obviously the behemoth of it. That's just who they are.
Yeah. No, but like I said, I think the third spot is going to rotate a lot. Yeah. And I think now, again, you talked about running trainers, right? Like I said, the Gel Cayano, that's the one that always gets done by Asics, the 14 specifically. And it's like, I used to run in that. Like I used to run marathons in that because that's what I needed to run in. And so when I see people wearing them in the streets, it's a me thing. I cannot get behind those being a fashion statement. I feel too much like my dad, because one reason that I got into this also was because I struggled so much with casual footwear. I didn't know what to wear, and I hated wearing running shoes to like casual events because I felt so lame. Like I just did. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm getting older. I'm a white dude in this country. I cannot fall into this trap. I cannot become my father. And I was so glad that I got into this because it has opened up a whole world. But I mean, you talked about the Samba. Man, the Samba was white hot for like a good 2 years, especially with ladies, just white hot. It came out of nowhere. That was an indoor football shoe when I was growing up. That's what the kids wore to play football indoors. That's what I saw it as. And now it's like, wait, what? They have, oh wow, there's just tons of Sambas, and they've got suede on them, and they've got all these designs and these colors. And my wife is like, I need a pair of Sambas. And I'm like, okay, this is insane. Like, where did that come from? Like, I need a pair of Sambas. And there is going to be a moment for shoes like that somebody does it the right way, and boom, it just takes off. And if somebody like you is noticing that, then that's everybody else is noticing too. So I think the brands know they're trying that strategy, and they're just trying to get something to catch fire so that they can make a crap ton of money and move on to the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time, I don't know whether they were ever technically in that number 3 spot, but K-Swiss trainers, do you remember that?
K-Swiss,
K-Swiss tennis shoes. Do you know what I mean? There was a time, the ones that interchange the colors on the side. Yeah. They were hella popular.
Dude, I love that stuff. I love that stuff. Like Fila had like a very short window here, but it was like, man, they couldn't do any wrong. And One, do you guys remember them back in the late 90s, early 2000s? That was a brand that they got behind this NBA athlete named Stephon Marbury, and they were like these two guys who just randomly caught fire, and the shoe broke the first time he used it on the court, and they just went down. Like they went from like way up here, and then they went way down. Yeah. So there's always these stories about these brands. I mean, K-Swiss is a good example of it. Keds was an example of one way back in the day. They were like the first brand to ever use like rubber on their shoes. And like, I see that old ladies wearing that kind of stuff type thing, but there's always some story that somebody remembers. You remember this? And that's where I think these companies have an ability to get in and try and traffic in that, even if it's for a short window.
So you said you had some other shoes there. Did you want to share some of those with us now, dude?
Sure. So I have the Jordan 4 here. So Air Jordans are obviously a huge thing. All of these happen to be Nikes because that's what I wear a lot of, but as far as the history. So back in the mid 2000s, well, let's go all the way back. So in the late 80s, I think it was like 85, 86, Nike came out with the Nike Dunk, which was unfortunately put out right after the Air Jordan. They look very, very similar. The Dunk High was out. It was a basketball shoe at the time. It was kind of catering to colleges here in the United States, and it really fell by the wayside. So Nike skateboarding ended up picking it up because skateboarders started to really gravitate toward the shoe. They were cheap to find. They were high tops. They were sturdy because that's what skaters need. So in the mid 2000s, the Nike SB or skateboard Dunk Low and Dunk High became a real thing where these skate shops were getting them and designing them. So the one I have here, we'll try to get it in focus. And it's a little bright. No, it's not going to work, is it? Anyway, it'll go. So this is, if I can get it. Hold on. Oh, there it goes.
There you go.
There you go. Okay. So this is the Diamond Supply Company Dunk Low. This is like a holy grail for a lot of people. It's called colloquially the Tiffany's, but it's got some croc print here. It's got this Tiffany on here on the sole. It's got like a diamond or whatever. This is probably the most popular Dunk Low of all time. It's old and it's one of my favorite shoes ever just because it looks like nothing else. Like it's just so interesting, the colors. And when I wear them anywhere, everybody's like, wow, those are awesome. What are those? So those are kind of like my luxury pair. I love those. 2017, Nike did a design competition where they brought in a bunch of people around the country and solicited designs. And a guy named Sean Wotherspoon won the contest. And now he has he had anyway at the time, two like vintage clothing stores. One started in Virginia, which is not far from where I live, and the other one is in LA. And then that was this guy here, which is the Wotherspoon. It's an Air Max 97, but it has an Air Max 1 outsole here. It's all corduroy, different nods on it. This is another one of my favorite shoes ever. Everybody is always like, wow, this is probably one of the most popular shoes like ever in terms of Air Maxes. So I absolutely love this pair. I wear this a lot. It looks a lot better beat up. And my last one, we talk about tennis shoes. So Andre Agassi, you guys know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Big tennis player, right, in the United States. Now, one of the things he was known for was taking tennis, which was a stuffy sport back in the day, and kind of making it cool, the long hair, everything. So this is the AirTech Challenge 2. This came out last year. There you go. The Hot Lava. So it's hard to tell because it's a little overexposed, but this is like a faded sort of outsole here. This is the first colorway that they came out with it. They re-released this last year, and I've always wanted a pair. The AirTech Challenge 2 is awesome. I love this shoe so much. That colorway is great, but they have done something I love in that they made it comfortable now. So you're going to be seeing me spend a lot of money. There's another pair right over here that I just got that I have to cut the review for, but those are the ones that I brought. I certainly have a lot more, but I love these for different reasons. They mean something different to me. And the one that I just bought, like that AirTech Challenge, is just such a great nod because it made tennis cool. And it did what Reebok tried to get in on that, but nobody was Andre Agassi.
No.
And that shoe perfectly matched the guy who was wearing it. And I thought that was awesome. So I was really happy to get a pair of those. Those go for like $500 now. So the sneaker gods, if you believe in that sort of thing, blessed me the day that I got the Gotham notification.
No, fair play. And those dunks, I love those shoes. And they did a De La Soul one, the 3 feet high and right. Oh, man.
Yeah, those are some of the most popular. I have so many old dunks downstairs because that period of time, they're never going to re-release them ever again. So Blue Lobsters are a good one. Stussy Cherries, another one. I have the Marty McFlys, the ones that were from like the mid 2010s. I love those a lot. Even Travis Scott did one. He's a guy who's done a ton of stuff, but he had the ones that have like the actual rope laces on them. They have like a paisley print on them. Love those. I could wear dunks all the time. The Dunk Low is awesome. Until the AirTech Challenge 2 got re-released and I started getting actually acquainted with it. The Dunk Low is my favorite silhouette. The AirTech Challenge 2 has easily overtaken it with how comfortable it is and just how different it looks. Seriously, guys, when I wear this shoe out, so many people say, oh my God, I had those when I was a kid. It's the best. It's the absolute best because you get that moment with them where they're like, where did you get those? And it's like, it's a conversation starter every time. So that's why I love that pair because inevitably, I think my son had a birthday party. We had it here, like 4 of the dads. Oh, I used to have those. I love it. It's great because it's like, yeah. So they're like, where can I get a pair? I'm like, well, that's a different conversation that we're having.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Yeah.
Yes.
So, dude, we always wrap these episodes up round about the hour mark. We shot over a little bit, but
Sure.
that's fine because we've
Sorry.
enjoyed it. No, absolutely no problem at all. Did you want to share for the good folks listening from the Tallboy Radio side anyway, where they can find your stuff online?
Sure. So my podcast, my YouTube channel is called Fire Footwear Sneaker Talk. It's here on the screen, but I'm in podcast, YouTube. You can find me on Instagram. Fire Footwear Pod is the handle there. I do have a sneaker chat that we do there. It's kind of nice actually, where it's a bunch of people who found the content some way, and we just talk shoes. Sometimes we talk life. It's really nice to have the rest of the world's problems tuned out, because in this world today, I don't know what it's like over there, but over here, it's constant. It's a barrage of just everything that's happening in the world, and it becomes kind of exhausting. So you can listen in audio. The audio stuff is different than the video stuff. Beans, I think you follow. I don't know. You see, I've been doing reels, trying to do some different stuff. I mean, guys, I wish I was where you were at, because you guys do this. You love what you do, and you do not care at all about anything else. And I feel like I'm grinding for diminishing returns, but I'm happy with what I've built. I'm happy with what I've learned, and I feel like I'm putting out great stuff, and you're going to learn something. And I just love connecting with people. So audio, video, I don't care how you do it. If you do listen, if you do tune in, you get my thanks, because it's not a guarantee. So that's me.
No, amen. And it was probably something we don't acknowledge enough is the people who do take the time to listen to this podcast, and one or two will watch it from time to time as well, but audio is really where we find our home. We really appreciate you taking the time. There's loads of other podcasts out there that you can listen to. So to take the time to listen to ours, we really appreciate it, and we like to work with people like yourself, Matty, so hopefully anybody who listens to Tallboy Radio can go on and find your stuff as well. And the other podcasters that we have on from time to time, then go and listen to it. And maybe, even if you don't enjoy it, but listen to an episode or two and learn something a little bit different about somebody else's life experiences, because everybody has them and they're all different to your own, ain't they?
No, absolutely, and amen. And you never really know who's listening and who's networking with who, and if somebody's listening to Tallboy Radio and they listen to this episode, then like, wow, I'm such a sneakers fan, I'm such a trainers fan, then what they'll do is they'll go and hit you up and vice versa sort of things. To me, it's, as I said earlier, it's about having fun, it's about learning things, it's about connecting people, and like I said, the podcast community out there is amazing, and it's not that sort of cutthroat. People will retweet, repost, give each other shout outs, and it is that sort of community sort of feel. So I say, you enjoy podcasts, get out there and pick a content, pick a podcast, pick a topic, and go and enjoy yourself.
I agree.
Indeed. So Matty, thank you very much for sharing your time with us and sharing your passion. We've really enjoyed listening to it and learning a little bit about it. Is there any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
Nope. Just, I hope it, as I say at the end of every podcast, I hope this finds everybody well and safe, because that's important in this world. But thank you for this time, trusting me with your platform. And I'm always game to come on and talk mediums, talk sneakers, whatever you want. We can talk that. We can talk about how shitty the Bears are going to be, whatever you want, whatever. You want.
Oh, no, you can't leave on that note. Come on.
That's the perfect time to leave it, because one thing's for sure, them Bears are going to be shitty.